In the early 4th century, the Roman world stood at a threshold. Christianity had spread beyond households and hidden gatherings, entering public life, administration, and even the ranks of the army. This presence unsettled imperial authority, which had long relied on religious unity as a pillar of political order. Faith now confronted power from within its own structures. For some, this conflict unfolded quietly. For others, it emerged openly, where command, loyalty, and conscience could no longer be separated. The life of Saint Theodore the Stratlates reveals how Christian confession reshaped the meaning of authority itself, transforming military command into a field of witness rather than domination. This documentary follows the life and martyrdom of Saint Theodore the Commander, tracing how courage shaped by faith, wisdom expressed through restraint, and suffering accepted freely became a testimony that illuminated both soldiers and civilians living under imperial rule. Saint Theodore was born in the city of Ukeida in northern Asia Minor, a region familiar with military presence and frontier tension. From an early age, he distinguished himself through discipline, intelligence, and physical courage. These qualities prepared him for service in the Roman army, where order and loyalty were prized above all else. His character, however, would soon reveal a deeper foundation. While advancing in military life, Theodore embraced the Christian faith. This commitment did not remove him from service, but reshaped the meaning of his vocation. His conduct reflected restraint, justice, and clarity of conscience. Faith did not diminish his effectiveness as a soldier. It ordered his actions toward responsibility rather than ambition, and courage rather than aggression. Theodore's bravery became widely known through an event that marked his early reputation. Near Ukeida, a giant serpent had taken residence on a rocky precipice, terrorizing the surrounding countryside and destroying livestock and travelers. The threat spread fear across the region, and no one dared confront it openly. Trusting in God, Theodore armed himself and went out alone to face the creature. Through this act, he delivered the land from terror and openly glorified Christ before the people. The victory was not attributed to strength alone, but to divine aid. This moment revealed how faith shaped his courage and gave meaning to his actions. News of this deed reached imperial authorities. Theodore's discipline, bravery, and leadership qualities drew attention beyond his homeland. The Emperor Licinius, seeking capable officers, appointed him Stratlates, military commander, and governor of the city of Heraclea in Thrace. With this office, Theodore received both authority and public visibility. Upon assuming command, Theodore did not conceal his Christian identity. His governance reflected order and justice, and his personal conduct reinforced his words. He spoke openly of Christ, not through provocation, but through reasoned speech and consistent example. His authority lent credibility to his confession, and many listened. The transformation of Heraclea unfolded gradually. Citizens accustomed to pagan worship encountered a leader whose life embodied coherence between belief and action. Theodore's preaching, supported by integrity, led many to abandon idolatry. Before long, a large portion of the city embraced the Christian faith. This development altered the spiritual character of Heraclea. What had begun as personal confession now affected the public life of the city. Christianity had entered the sphere of governance itself, challenging assumptions about loyalty, power, and worship within the Roman order. Such influence could not remain unnoticed. The growth of the Church under Theodore's command placed him directly in the path of imperial policy. The authority that had elevated him would soon demand a test of conscience, setting the stage for open confrontation and witness. Toward the end of the second decade of the 4th century, Emperor Licinius renewed his efforts to suppress Christianity. Policies once uneven became systematic, targeting those whose faith carried influence. Officers of the army were ordered to offer sacrifice to the gods or surrender their rank. Loyalty to the empire was measured by ritual conformity rather than service rendered. As governor and military commander, Saint Theodore the Stratlitz stood directly under this decree. Licinius summoned him and demanded sacrifice to the pagan gods as proof of obedience. Theodore did not evade the command. He answered with composure, declaring his faith openly and refusing to perform any act that would deny Christ. Rather than immediate punishment, Theodore proposed a delay. He invited the emperor to come to Heraclea, suggesting that both of them offer sacrifice publicly before the people. This request appeared to signal cooperation, yet it concealed discernment shaped by prayer. Licinius, confident in his authority, accepted the invitation and prepared a formal visit. During the night before the emperor's arrival, Theodore received a vision announcing that the time had come for him to testify through suffering. Strengthened by this assurance, he prepared himself inwardly for what lay ahead. The following day, he received Licinius with honor, presenting the city in good order and discipline. Admiring the city, the emperor proposed to perform sacrifice to the gods. Theodore agreed, requesting only that the golden idols brought by Licinius be entrusted to him overnight, so that he might honor them privately before the public rite. The request raised no suspicion, and the statues were delivered to his residence. That night, Theodore reduced the idols to fragments. He distributed the gold among the poor, transforming objects of false worship into instruments of mercy. At dawn, as preparations for sacrifice began, a centurion approached the emperor in distress, reporting that he had seen a beggar wearing the golden head of the statue of Artemis. The deception was revealed. Licinius summoned Theodore, who confessed his actions without hesitation. He declared that lifeless images deserved no honor, and that the wealth once offered to idols had been returned to those in need. His words exposed the emptiness of enforced worship and the fragility of imperial piety. Enraged by this public challenge, the emperor ordered Theodore's arrest. The patience once extended to a valued officer ended. What followed would no longer involve negotiation or strategy, but suffering inflicted with intent to break resolve and silence confession. Thus, the trial of conscience gave way to the trial of the body. The authority that had raised Theodore now prepared to crush him, unaware that the witness about to unfold would reach far beyond the walls of Heraclea. After his arrest, Theodore was subjected to a series of calculated tortures intended to exhaust both body and will. He was dragged along the ground, beaten with iron rods, pierced with sharp spikes, and burned with fire. Each torment was designed to compel surrender through pain. Throughout these trials, Theodore uttered a single confession, repeating quietly, "Glory to thee, my God." The suffering inflicted upon him was severe and prolonged. His body was mutilated, and his eyes were torn from their sockets. The violence sought to erase dignity and silence faith. Yet Theodore's endurance revealed a depth of strength shaped by prayer rather than resistance. His response transformed torture into testimony, witnessed by soldiers and officials alike. Varus, Theodore's servant, remained near him during these torments. With trembling hand, he recorded what he saw, scarcely able to comprehend the cruelty inflicted upon his master. These written memories preserved not only the details of suffering, but the unwavering spirit that sustained Theodore through each trial. After prolonged torture, Theodore was crucified and left to die. Imperial authorities considered the matter resolved. The cross was meant to conclude his influence and erase his presence. The city watched in silence, expecting death to claim the condemned commander before nightfall. During the night, divine intervention altered what appeared finished. An angel descended, healed Theodore's wounds, and released him from the cross. His body was restored, bearing no trace of injury. When morning came, soldiers found him alive and unharmed, standing where death had been expected. Witnessing this, several soldiers were struck with fear and conviction. Recognizing the power of the Christian God, they sought baptism near the place of execution. What had been intended as a public display of punishment became a moment of illumination for those who had served the empire without knowing Christ. Despite this deliverance, Theodore refused to flee. He understood that escape would diminish the fullness of his witness. He returned voluntarily to Licinius, discouraging Christians from resistance. He reminded them that Christ, hanging upon the cross, restrained the angels and did not permit vengeance upon humanity. His return revealed that martyrdom was not forced upon him by circumstance alone. It was embraced freely. Theodore chose to complete his offering, allowing obedience to God to outweigh self-preservation. His witness now moved steadily toward its final act. The commander who once governed with authority now prepared to seal his confession through death, confident that the path he followed was guided by faith rather than fear. Having returned voluntarily to imperial custody, Theodore was led toward his final sentence. Along the way, the presence that had accompanied his life remained evident. Those who approached him in faith were healed from sickness and freed from demonic affliction simply by touching his robe. The path to execution became a final extension of his ministry among the suffering. Before his death, Theodore spoke privately to his servant Varus. He asked him to preserve the memory of the day and hour of his martyrdom and instructed that his body be buried in Ucata, the land of his birth. These words revealed attentiveness even in the face of death, ensuring that his witness would remain rooted in the Church's memory. By order of Emperor Licinius, Theodore was condemned to death by the sword. He was led to the place of execution without resistance. The man who once commanded troops now bowed his neck freely, submitting himself to death with the same discipline that had shaped his life of service and confession. At the third hour of the day, on February 8th in the year 319, Theodore was beheaded. In this act, he received the crown of martyrdom he had long prepared for. His death marked the completion of a life offered wholly to Christ, uniting authority, suffering, and obedience in a single testimony. As he had commanded, his body was taken to Ucata and buried with reverence. Soon after, the Church witnessed the grace accompanying his relics. Healings occurred, and the faithful gathered at his tomb, recognizing that the power at work in his life continued beyond death. The translation of his relics on June 8th further confirmed his reception within the Church. These events strengthened devotion and preserved his witness across regions. His memory spread among soldiers and civilians alike, offering a model of courage governed by conscience and faith. Within the Orthodox Church, Saint Theodore the Stratelates came to be venerated as a protector and patron of soldiers. His life affirmed that service to earthly authority finds its true measure when ordered toward obedience to God. His martyrdom did not glorify violence. It revealed restraint, voluntary offering, and trust in Christ. The commander who once led armies now leads through example, reminding the faithful that true victory is won through fidelity rather than force. Through liturgical remembrance, prayer, and veneration, the Church continues to proclaim his witness. The confession of Saint Theodore remains alive, illuminating paths of service, courage, and sacrifice for generations who follow. The life of Saint Theodore the Commander reveals how faith reshapes authority, courage, and service. His witness shows that true strength is not measured by force or command, but by fidelity maintained under trial and suffering freely embraced for the sake of Christ. If this testimony has spoken to you, you are welcome to remain with us. This channel is dedicated to presenting the lives of Orthodox saints and feasts with historical care and theological depth, allowing their witness to continue guiding conscience and perseverance in the life of the Church today.